So I'm Ghislaine Boddington, and I work as creative director of Body Data Space. We're based in East London, and I also have a research associateship with Middlesex University. Basically, I'm going to try and show you some of the projects that we've done across the years and the inter-authorship technique that we've developed for collaboration and how we see that and how we've written about it. And basically starting from this point of view, that for artists and technologists, the challenge actually now is to engage and comment and disrupt on the mass global view of a digital world. And it's actually the way that this debate will take place beyond just digital aesthetics and beyond just the technological tools, but will actually enable people like you now to go out and collaborate and make things happen. So Body Data Space, quickly, we are what we say. We place the body at the centre of data and digital space, virtual and physical space. So we're looking at the body data and virtual physical space. We're an interdisciplinary unit. Actually, Nick Rothwell is part of a collective. We've been working together 12 years or so Nick's here today. We're based in East London, as I said, and a core group of us come from performing arts background. So this is why there's this focus on the live, living body there. And we work with, within collaboration and inter-authorship techniques, and a lot with connectivity and mobility, as I'll show you. So we emerged from the digital pioneer group Shinkansen. About 8 of us are coming from that original grouping. And we're a group of around 18 who work together on projects small to big, depending who comes in with different skills on different projects. And as we say there, working across arts, culture, creative industries, university and the digital sectors. So we do live events, we do installations, exhibitions, conferences. Actually, we kind of do anything which will focus on the body at the centre of a digital interaction. So we've got our theme, we work with it, whatever has to happen from it. And this is our kind of mission statement that we've worked with across the years. Actually, a set of words which are coming from both actions of the body and senses and feelings from the body, but which we are applying all the time across into digital technologies. So, again, to emphasise, this is where we're at. We're looking at how art and culture through digital tools can engage, can catalyse, can inform, can intervene, can push and empower creativity for many. And this being, whether this is in real time, whether it's online, in a mobile way, virtual, physical, crowdsourced, user-driven. So that's our focus again, is actually how do we engage participation within interactivity and creativity for many. So quickly, just to give you a little bit of history, we've been working with digital technology since the early 90s. We did a whole series of digital and performing arts huge workshops across Europe between 92 and really about 2004, about 80 or so, bringing together choreographers, sound artists, production and also digital artists, the emerging digital artists of the time. So this is long-term work with probably over about 2,000 artists across Europe and around the world. And it's through that work that we've developed this inter-authorship methodology. Like Furtherfield, we were engaged with Backspace, and in '95 we had our first little texty-based website there on the server, which I think is all still there actually, all our stuff, so it's still online. And we've had a big focus on telepresence, which I'm going to show you a few slides of. But from Body Data Space, which formed in 2005, these are the main bigger projects, and these have mainly been, like this project today, EU projects, EU culture and EU technology projects that we've worked with 3 to 15 partners on, with multiple sources of funding on projects which are usually 24 months and happening in, say, 7 or 8 different countries. So lot of collaboration work, a lot of partnership management, and a lot of working with mixing people cross-culturally and across different art forms and backgrounds. So quickly, one of our key focuses has been telepresence, so connectivity of the body from one space to another. So full body telepresence is a specialisation, particularly my specialisation. And we've done a series of performances linking up across Europe and actually into Delhi, into Arizona, into China, etc. Looking at real-time collaboration, what we call virtual physical blended space. So here we're using a range of different technologies, but mainly based obviously in camera technologies and projection technologies and using connectivity through the internet, plus actually starting to converge this with motion capture and with virtual worlds. So across the last few years, working into different different spaces, a lot of educational work with young people, with young dancers, looking at a variety of different body data. This one's a piece we commissioned in 2003 by Tekla Schripost and Susan Gazelle, using biofeedback, interchange between people. Here with wearable computing, and here with avatars, real-time avatars, working with dancers in virtual space. And here, actually, where you are the avatar within virtual worlds and doing collaborative projects within virtual worlds. So we're based in liveness, and so I've just put this slide in. For performing arts people in the room, you'll recognise these are key words from our learning history. Actually, from whether you're involved in technology or not, we're looking at presence and absence, perception shifting, enjoyment, involvement, intimacy, sensation seeking, the immediacy of liveness. So this is relevant both to the participant and the spectator, but also to the performer. So that's our key thing. How do we hold on to this liveness within this technology-led world? So our key area is to look at actually what data leaves the body, what we can transmit from the body and what we can bring back to the body. And that, of course, ranges from the audio-visual, which we're all on top of, right through to the areas that we focus on, which are more to do with haptic, touch, kinesthetic biofeedback, and actually motion capture, and this area here to other people who are focused, other artists around the world who are focusing on smell, on locational, on taste, gestural interaction. But I think it's quite amazing how much we can transmit from the body, data that can leave us, which we're much more aware of today with the fit band sports stuff, with it's coming into much more everyday use, yeah, and how much also we can receive back into the body and how this data can be used in different ways around us. So most of our projects are based on that. But coming into the theme of today, interauthorship is how we talk. We talk about interauthorship and actually what we see is the incredible value of actually collectively networking in collaboration situations, bringing together groups of people, they can be 5 people, it can be 80 people, to work in collective collaboration methodologies. I've got a couple of slides here which are actually models of what we call emergent dynamic networking, which come from our EU projects. And this is a recent one we've just finished called Robots and Avatars, where we see a kind of like porous circle where all of the groups are in the middle. And actually the network is continuing to happen through the project. So a bit like Camille's described today, what goes beyond this as well, what the legacy of this is, how the dynamic continues out there. And another one called I Human We Cluster. So these are kind of cluster projects and allowing them to engage in their own emergence. And actually, yes, you've got fixed things that have to happen in various activities, various ways, but actually how do you use the emergent energy from collective collaborations too? So that might be something to think about in your own work. Actually, what is there that you can't even judge before you start it, but you actually allow as possibilities to come from it? So in collective network collaboration, our basis is actually working in rings of interaction. So we're breaking down hierarchies, we're setting an interdisciplinary base of the creation process. We absolutely respect specialisation within the collective. So it's, people have their very specialist areas, of course, yeah, as we know in today's world. But we are looking at a shared ownership of that work. So this is a very fluid, porous process. There are clusters of interaction that happen throughout it, and I'm going to explain that a little bit more. And it has its own emergent dynamic. And one of the key things in our work is, and these are groups, very mixed groups of people, and actually as we've in the recent history become even more mixed, scientists, roboticists, engineers, performing artists, visual artists, musicians, etc., working together. One of the key things that we hold in place from the beginning of a project is that everybody in that group will be viewed as a creative. And that being a very key point to get into mind, to stop these hierarchies that can happen within these interdisciplinary projects. So I think that might be one of my big points for today. The next 2 slides actually take a few points from the interauthorship group process that we have in place, and we actually get people to sign up to it at the beginning of a project. Now, I think a lot of these points are basic common sense, but sometimes it's good to just get that in place between you in a kind of ethical way. Actually, yes, I do realise coming into this project, into this collaboration, we are all regarded as creatives, yeah? That we will all lead in particular skills, but still within that we can respect experience and we can respect topicality and freshness. So actually giving equal weighting to those of us that have been doing this stuff a long time, but the younger ones coming in with new freshness and new topicalities. So, Everybody learning and teaching equally, everybody working on the day-to-day practicalities of these events as well. It sounds a very obvious thing to say, but there tends to be this thing where specialists disappear and it ends up with the younger ones clearing up at the end of the day, or the people who are not regarded as important. So this creation process, this interauthorship process, is about the pooling of ideas, and it's about weaving and plaiting of content, and I'll come back to that. The chain of interaction, and really a very deep collaboration process. We're watching it all the time, and my job is, as a process director, is to overview those chains of interaction and to make sure they are taking place within that time frame and with that timeline. We have open studios all the time. Nobody closes the door and says, I'm doing my stuff on my own. It's an open situation. And we always have debate and integrated documentation. We always have had throughout our work. So now these slides and additional information are on my Middlesex University, pages on Middlesex University website. So if anybody wants more of that, they're there to download and use as you need to, yeah? I think they're quite common sense, yeah? But in some ways, like I said earlier, very useful to fix things at the beginning of a project. These were written with about 300 of us wrote them and adjusted them and edited them across 4 years, 92 to 96, and we've used them ever since on every project, and without need to change it. So coming back to the weave, in our work, we've got the body at the centre, but I think for most of us today, that is an imperative, whether we're talking about ourselves, whether we're talking about the user that we're making work for, a participatory user who's coming in to be creative within it, yeah, or a specific user like a dancer or a musician or whatever. So the body's very, very clearly there. And we've got the technologies that we're working with, many. I'm sure in the room today there's lots and lots of different technology expertise and ideas, yeah. And the content, of course, which is the theme, the issue, the needs that are in exploration in that particular project. So what we tend to do is to talk about this as a weave, as like plaiting or braiding. So you've got 3 strands and you have to cross them over each other. And those 3 strands together, like rope making, will make a much stronger whole. But as we all know with plaiting and braiding, particularly those of us as women in the room, we've had that done to us when we were kids, and I think it's also in fashion again this year, we know that if we don't keep those strands going simultaneously at the same time across and over each other, the whole thing falls apart. And you can see the different strands coming out of it. And I have to be really honest now, working with technology and bodywork since the early 90s, I can tell really fast if I see anything, I can tell really fast whether that real weaving process has happened throughout the making of a project or not. Seeing something on stage or an installation, etc. It is very clear whether you have held together your content, your technologies, and the people you're doing it for throughout the process, in your thoughts, in your planning, in the way that it is debated throughout the process, reconsidered, reconnected in throughout that process time. So maybe the weave and the braid or the plait is an easy metaphor to keep thinking about. It's not an easy one to keep in place, but it's very important to keep at the top of the mind. So, and that allows the interauthorship space to occur. So I think this is a bit of a repeat slide from what I've already told you, so I'll move on from there. Another part of this that we realise is complicated is what we call the I-we syndrome. And I've done quite a lot of writing about this with my university work. The complexity of the I and we within group work. Now, I'm sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. Slightly in the bottom of your tummy, you know those points in time when you've had that little struggle between the I of your idea, your stuff that you're bringing in, and the we of that particular collaborative project, yeah? So how do you deal with that within yourself? So, you know, we feel it's very confusing and quite schizophrenic. It's like a doublespeak of today's world, yeah? And this is not just recent. This is like the last 30 years or so. We are in this doublespeak of I and we. And actually, it's quite clever and difficult to, in a way, what it can do is hide a shallow collaboration or a fake collective within the I and the we. So we've all been in situations where it's, when we're in the group, where it's in the studio around the table, it's a we, yeah? And as soon as the group splits up, if it's going positively, maybe half the group starts saying, my project, I did this, yeah? If it's going negatively, it's like, they did it, you know, it was wrong, it was, you know. And we really need to watch ourselves on this and actually be honest to ourselves about it. It's not easy. And it may be good to, as a little exercise, just to watch yourself even across the next week. How many times do you use I or we, and when do you use it in relationship to different collaborative environments? Because we can catch ourselves out, very much so. And actually, we do, I'm sure we all know that there's many, authors, who are actually saying they're collaborating, but put themselves back into an author situation, which is not realistic in today's processes. I'm coming from a background where I'm very much grown up in collective environment. I see and I direct the connection of ideas across multiple people. I don't think anyone has an idea on their own today. I think we are utterly reliant on a range of specialists to come in and work around us. If I think of something which is very techie involved, I will always talk to Nick. Nick puts back ideas into me. Then we go to the others. And then it's not my idea. It's the body data space development of an idea, yeah? So I think we need to be honest about reflecting the working conditions of the 21st century in the creation process and how we talk about ourselves in that. And identity clarity about yourself as the I or the we is very, very important in terms of what you bring to a group as an individual. So knowing what you can bring into that particular collaboration before entering it, knowing what you're prepared to put into that collaboration before entering it as an individual, and how you will participate with your personal experience and with your personal skills, with what you bring with you culturally, educationally, etc., into what needs to be a collective process, and how you can be effective within that as the I becoming the we, part of the we. So these are things that we all have to think about, and we all have to keep up ourselves quite strict about with ourselves before we get cross with other people within the group for maybe doing too much I work or working on their own or saying it was their idea in the first place, that bit, which we've probably all experienced, yeah. So this comes back to that whole dynamic networking and how we actually look at these emergent patterns of behaviours that happen within collaborative groups, which I think is fascinating, these patterns that pop out, things that are intangible that you can't possibly prejudge, and leave space for that to happen. Leave that creative fluid space, because all of us are dependent on the others within a collective collaboration practice. And we need to hold that into the base of it. So we need to put our dedicated independent engagement in to a collective process which we accept has become pooled, and we actually genuinely do that. Hopefully that reflection happens throughout the group process. So if you've set yourself that clear process in the first place and everyone signed up to it in a way like Ruth said about getting the briefing really, really clear, then you can go back and say, actually you can't do that on your own in a corner, and that wasn't just your bit of work. You've been working in the group for 4 months. It's all our work that's gone into that, yeah? So there's points that you may need to use that to pull back on. So it's all about maintaining flattened hierarchies and yet at the same time allowing clusters of interaction to pop up at various points when they're needed, when the software needs a particular bit of focus and we all need to focus on that particular issue in the software, and then drops down again. Maybe the dance bit needs a bit of time focusing in, everybody looking at it, but then re-flattening it all the time. And so what we look at is actually structuring the fluidity or planning the informality. So what we've learned is that the more structured you are and creating a very clear basket for the collaboration to take place in, the more fluid and creative space you can allow and leave within that, and will happen naturally within it. Because you've got the safeness of the structure, you've got a time frame, you know exactly what you're doing, who's doing which activities, who's responsible for what, who's collaborating with who, when things come back together. And then it's like, great, we're feeling good, let's get on with it. We've now got the space to be informal, to be fluid, to be creative within it. So structuring your fluidity and engaging the I within the we. And I just point out at the bottom of this slide, this is no place for flaneurs. Collaboration process, you cannot sit on the outside and watch. You are never an observer. And there is an illusion in some people that they will sit at the edge and watch and observe. And actually, I'd say, in my multiple huge group projects, it's always that person or persons that think that they are the observer watching in that causes the biggest problems in group work, because everybody else just gets pissed off at that, yeah? So do not sit on the edge and think that you can possibly be the overviewer. You're not. Everybody's in there equally. If you're in, you're in. If you're not, you're not, yeah? Even if you're the documenter. That's one of the ones that goes wrong. So the I-We collaborative share space is what emerges from this. So what we're looking at is knowledge and skills and ideas and beliefs from the individual, knowledge and skills and ideas and beliefs coming from the group into the middle of this shared I-We architecture, where you are placing your stuff in together, yeah? And you're sharing it into, I mean, these EU projects particularly, cultural understanding is a major part of it. So intercultural understanding and growth, yeah? And this is the transformative process. This event that can happen in this middle point when it can go well, the magic of that blended situation. Often for us, virtual physical blending is the main thing. Many of you will be obviously with ICT working with that, leading to qualitative change for you and for the user that you're aiming at. So, you know, you've got to hold on to that fact. You've got to create something magic in that joint space. So actually this is a slide that's, there's a little movie on my Middlesex site which is about this, you know, you are we, you are we, we are you, that whole muddle up that happens through it. So I'm just using that as a bookmark slide here. So just to quickly run down, I've actually got really similar points to Ruth here. So these are just for today particularly, the trust point at the top. Co-organisers need to, and you know, artists together need to share base values and output needs. You really have got to. There's just no point otherwise, yeah? You must really want to understand each other's working processes, even you're coming from very different backgrounds. For me, that's like been a slight obsession all my life, wanting to understand how, and people who have been trained very differently than me, I've trained as a performing artist, actually, how do their heads work? How do they put things together? How do they go from A to B? You know, I'm fascinated by that, like maybe over-obsessively. But I really do think that's a very important, the process is what makes the product, yeah? How we get there. Do not assume similarity, like in the way I like it is the way you like it. That's never true, yeah? We're very challenged to stop making assumptions, particularly with these European projects, yeah? You cannot have any assumptions in them at all. And very actively discussing work styles and work expectations and words. We always put keywords in the middle to try and sort it out cross-culturally. What, you know, even equipment's called different things in different countries. So, you know, get your keywords sorted. So aim for these open, independent forms of collaboration, flattening hierarchies, trying to get this balance around the I-We within it. Cultural scalability. We're looking here at European projects. It's the European, not global. I think the focus is clear on that. Is that right, Camille? I should, yeah.
Can collaborate in other parts of the consortium in terms of
Yep. So, and I'm sure even in this room, we've definitely got a very good mix of people from different, you know, I know several people from different countries already in this room. So we're lucky in Britain on that, particularly in London, to have that mix amongst us, whatever. So keep realigning the project, the gap between the project team's planned collaborative experience and actually what's happening on a day-to-day basis. So that, again, links into one of Ruth's points. So what is the ongoing experience and how does it relate to what you actually originally planned? Keep looking at that, even at the end of every day. Even if it's like 15 minutes at the end of each day that you sit together or that some of you come together, even online. So do group updates and reports, open evaluation and feedback, and really get an open environment going. You will catch problems so much earlier in a collaboration process if there is an openness to talk out things that are bothering people, things that people can see might be going wrong. Otherwise, they'll all come up at the end anyway, and the whole thing falls apart. So, you know, and keep the project in a professional mode. And actually, this is maybe slightly different than Ruth. Because this is art and culture does not mean it's just for fun. It is fun. It's great. And I agree, keep having fun too. But this particular point I always think is important because from the art side sector, but, you know, we can take this all too lightly and it's not. This particular, I think, ICT-ART Connect is very, very important that we actually focus on the end user, the need, why you're doing that work, what it's going to do out there, what social purpose it has, what is the cultural implication of it. And going back to cultural scalability, that is very important as well, to look at this. It's actually fine, that might work in London, but actually will it work in other countries, in Paris and Istanbul? Will it make any sense at all? I mean, for example, we're all using Twitter a massive amount here. On our bigger EU projects, you know, in Romania, they're not. They're using Facebook massively. So we are, all of us, having to really think in different ways about how people are distributing even information at the moment. So very, very big change patch. So quickly, if I've got 1 minute left, am I all right? Yeah, just to show The most recent project we did, which for me has been really leading up through 20 years of work, to the convergence of telepresence, virtual worlds and motion capture and human gesturing. And it's a project we've worked on with an EU Culture grant the last 3 years, and with the National Theatre in London. And this has been linked into Paris, Istanbul and Belgium, Brussels. It's called Me and My Shadow, and it's a real-time telepresence and motion capture experience for you as a participant, but within a virtual world. So, and this is using telepresence as a direct communication and interaction technology, not just as a transmission or streaming tool. So we're taking it that step further. It's multi-locational, real time, and it uses the full body representation, and there is nothing attached to the body at all. So been 20 years work to get to this, and we've got there, and we're ongoing developing it into creative industries, actually, because this is a very mixed project, creative industries arts project. And I'll just show you a quick little film of that. And I haven't got the sound in, have I? Oh, yes, I have. Oh, you're fantastic. Is the sound on?
I don't know.
There is a plug-in.
Yeah. I don't know. It's coming through.
Is there somebody dealing with sound on the computers? There's a plug-in, but
It's just here.
oh, don't worry. I didn't say that I needed sound. I forgot, so I'll just show you it without the sound. So, yeah, that's it. So this is using Connect. One of the reasons we've waited so long to do this final project is we've done a lot with motion capture, but of course you can't really use that very easily in a public environment until more recently with this domestic amazing tool, Connect, and the other ones that are starting to follow through from it. So we're linking up 4 boxes, pods, which were in 4 countries. One in Istanbul, one in Brussels, Paris and London. And as you went in, this is in London, you saw an avatar of yourself immediately, which has got its live ripple, pulse going through it. And you see the avatars in the other countries, green, orange, blue, different coloured avatars actually for each city, where the live person there is joining into that space. So it's a collaborative share space, which is physical and virtual. And we're doing a lot of experimentation in there with gestural interaction, with intimacy, with actually how we get to a sense of liveness within that space. And ongoing now, we're starting to work on variations of it, but the next versions of it will include text, will include videos, objects, virtual objects, and social media interaction too. So for me, that's become our kind of ultimate aim at getting to a collaboration which is genuinely blended between the virtual and the physical, and using this remote connectivity as a key tool within it. So that's Body Data Space, and I'll leave it at that. There's the website, and it's the rescend.net website that you can find these group process writings if you want to find those. So great, good.
Can you hold that slide a second?
Yes. We're also on Twitter as well. We've got actually doing a lot on Twitter, and there's one project we're doing at the moment called Women Shift Digital, which is focusing on celebrating women in digital space. So that's at Women Shift Digi. Very important for women in this room to follow it. We're doing a lot of very big crossover work between women working with digital work in numerous, right across sectors, banking, creative industries, education, arts, etc. Women Shift Digi, at Women Shift Digi. And Ruth's involved in that. Evelyn's involved in that, actually. Yeah, that's true. We're Nick. And actually, you came along, didn't you, Aisha? Yeah, so great. Camille was around, so.
So, which website contains your slide?
Oh, right. On the Body Data Space website, on the team page where I've got my biog, there's 2 movies. I hate them being there, but they are there. And one is for a conference called MEX, and that has most of these slides in it. So, and that's a user experience conference for the mobile industry, which I did a keynote in at March last year, and most of these slides are in there. Also on the ResZen website, there's a lecture, a university kind of seminar lecture I did at Nesta in March last year, which is on there too, although it's pretty badly filmed. So I think you're probably better going to the next one, which was well filmed. So.
May I ask you, I was really curious about the last thing you told us, this avatar technology you're working on. It's very fascinating to see how you implement this kind of and develop this kind of technology. But there is, like, the next step is maybe even more interesting.
Yes.
And
yeah.
my question is, do you have a specific scenario or use case how to use this in an exhibition or?
Well, this particular this first version was used in an arts context. As I said, we were in a National Theatre foyer, and the other 3 boxes were in art centre environments. Actually, one was in Brussels, was in Galleria, but it was in an arts festival, during a festival. Istanbul was in the university, but again, during an arts festival. So there was a very clear arts context there. So the last, that premiered June 2012, so it's a year and a half ago. And since then, we've been working on lots and lots of talking with creative industries and various different sectors, from health and well-being, retail, education, etc., about how to develop it. Yeah. So the next stage of the project actually is we're just receiving funding to actually do an 18-month project on variations of it for use in creative industries, and that will finalise in a forum which looks at exactly that. How do we start to use immersive experiential environments which are, you know, I think best developed in artistic context by people with extreme imagination and very extreme digital skills, yeah, into wider commercial sectors, yeah, and how do we get the business models to do that? So keep in touch and I'll let you know when that conference is coming up.
I mean, because I'm from a company, we are making technology, focused on technology for exhibitions or some other scenarios. Innovation driven, that's what we do. And what we face many times is that we have all these kind of technologies, they're popping out somewhere. Then companies like us, we try to distribute them, to bind them together, to make products out of it. And then the curious question, also for us and our customers, is how to use it in a meaningful way. That's like, for me, the most curious question.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that one of the things we're trying to avoid by being in this mixed economy between arts universities and the commercial sector is short, sharp, fast puts together. Yeah, because actually I think, and this will what the conference will be about, that actually this type of project, from my experience, and I've probably commissioned and produced 80 or so digital installations across the last 20 years, this really needs time, space, money, support, resources, yeah? These are not fast turnaround R&D lab commercial blobs, yeah? These are intensive working experiences. This one was made over 2 years with 4 residencies, 1 in each country, with software development time in between, with user research, etc. So the EU funds this. I mean, with this, we've been EU funded since the 90s on these types of crossover projects. But in the UK, it's very hard to get that money together from commercial or art sources. So we have really got to look how we bring together enough resources and financing to make the sophistication level of immersion that is required by the public. Because what we're seeing is a lot of actually very simplistic immersion environments coming out. So you see, like Nike putting up 5 big screens in an exhibition which have got one Connect down there which you jump around in front of. Well, I mean, we do that for kids' workshops into primary schools. So, you know, that is not, for me, where we need to be going. It needs to be going a lot further than that in this type of mature exchange environment. Yeah.